All right, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson announced yesterday that the Trump administration is pursuing a comprehensive review of the Obama-era policy in Iran. He admitted that the country is in compliance with the 2015 nuclear deal struck with the Obama administration, but also said the deal was a failure and that Iran is still a threat to the U.S. and the rest of the world.
An unchecked Iran has the potential to travel the same path as North Korea and take the world along with it. The United States is keen to avoid a second piece of evidence that strategic patience is a failed approach. Iran continues to support the brutal Assad regime in Syria, prolonging a conflict that has killed approximately 500,000 Syrians and displaced millions more. Iran supports the Assad regime even as it commits atrocities against its own people, including with chemical weapons. This deal represents the same failed approach of the past that brought us to the current imminent threat we face from North Korea. The Trump administration has no intention of passing the buck to a future administration on Iran. The evidence is clear. Iran's provocative actions threaten the United States, the region, and the world.
And of course, Tillerson went on to say what most foreign policy experts have said for some time, that Iran's the state sponsor of terror and has been the epicenter of terrorism since 1979. You actually watched Tillerson yesterday and were impressed by what you saw.
No, I think optically, it's the first time out of the box I've really seen him speak, and he, came off well, to sound shallow. I think it is a bigger argument. Well, we're all shallow. The bigger argument. Well, optics are important, but the bigger argument is just what it took to get that deal in place, and I'm not sure this administration has a sense of that yet. Yeah. But he sounded good.
Well, the thing with Rex Tillerson that we've seen is that Tillerson, Richard Haass, has told people around him he's going to actually learn the job. He's not going to get out front too quickly because he doesn't want to have to correct himself on the record. So I think it has been a slower ramp up than a lot of people are comfortable with, but he is moving forward there. But let's talk about the Iran deal more specifically. The president has said that he was against the Iran deal. It was one of the worst deals ever struck. I may be alone on the set agreeing with that. But at the same time, it is a hard deal to unwind, is it not? Especially since Barack Obama front-loaded all the benefits for Iran.
Yeah, the Iran deal is arguably a flawed deal, but it's not a failed deal, and that's where the Secretary of State got ahead of himself yesterday and was inconsistent with where the United States was Tuesday night, which is essentially certifying Iranian compliance with this deal. Look, Joe, it's not the deal I would have negotiated. I think the United States wanted the deal too much, agreed to certain things it should not have. That said, it's the only deal we have. If we want to get out of it, we're going to isolate ourselves, not Iran. And again, I think the reality is that Iran is doing many things that the deal has nothing to do with. For example, its imperial push for influence around the region. That is a strategic challenge for the United States and its partners in the region. But in the narrow nuclear sense, the deal is parking this problem. It's not solving it. It's parking it for a number of years. And the challenge probably for the next administration is going to be, what do you do when some of the ceilings, some of the limits on Iran expire? Right. How do we then make sure Iran doesn't do all, break out and build all sorts of capacity? But ironically, I'm going to say one other thing. The Secretary and others need to be a little bit careful about trashing this kind of a time-limited deal, because quite honestly, it's the only approach that may work with North Korea. We may have to do something similar there.
But Koki, I heard strategic patience. The age of strategic patience is over, which of course, for those of us who grew up in the Cold War, strategic patience worked pretty well. It was containment, and okay, we're just going to wait them out. But again, what's so different here is the clock is ticking on North Korea. The clock is ticking for the people of Seattle and Portland, and not to be melodramatic, that's what
North Korea is scary. It really is scary.
It's a scary situation, and so it seems like they're now applying strategic impatience to Iran as well.
Which is peculiar. I mean, why now? Why go after Iran right now when we've got all these other problems? And I was curious listening to Secretary Tillerson talking about support for the Assad regime, because I'm not clear whether the Trump administration supports the Assad regime. You know, it's been very unclear about whether they think Assad has to go or not. So if that's a reason to go after Iran, where are we in all of that mix? So I think that it's just an odd thing for him to be doing right now when we've got North Korea staring us in the face.
What prompted
It seems to be another instance in which the administration is causing foreign policy confusion to allies around the world. We have, it came in clearly with Donald Trump saying this was the worst deal America had ever struck and that he was going to rip it up. Even during the campaign, some of his foreign policy aides rode back from the idea of it being ripped up. During the first 2 months of the administration, the understanding was that the Iran deal was not going to be ripped up in totality. Now we have suddenly Secretary Tillerson out there talking very tough about Iran. But it's another instance in which you get different members of the administration projecting different tones. You've got Vice President Pence out in Asia at the moment telling the U.S. troops in Japan, you have to be ready, as if they have to be on alert for some kind of action against North Korea. At the same time as you have other members of the administration, McMaster, saying we are going to stop short of military action. And there is an element of confusion and that reflects a lack of clear strategy from the administration.
I think the message that Donald Trump has said he was going to deliver, and the message that Donald Trump is delivering is that I'm not going to tell people what my next move is. I'm going to keep them guessing. That's on one side. And the other side is, and we've said it all along, his obsession with his branding. Strength.
Right. Well,
strength.
Promise.
Well,
You attach all of these things, and you know, here's the interesting thing, Peter Baker, our allies, actually, for the most part, let's say we'll put Angela Merkel over in another corner where her hand is not shaken, but most of our allies like this American approach.
Well, they like American leadership in the world. They like an American, robust American presence in the Middle East, in Europe, and Asia, which they felt, rightly or wrongly, Barack Obama was not exhibiting, that Barack Obama had retreated too far.
They did not like
What they don't
America leading from behind.
They don't like America leading from behind, but they do like predictability and they like reliability. And where the problem with this administration among the allies is they don't know where they're going and what they're going to do. If you're living in the Baltics, what you want to know right now is the United States is going to stand with you if Russia starts to do something. And that strategic ambiguity, let's use that phrase, that President Trump has been fostering over the last few months leaves people like that feeling uncertain.
But on NATO, though, NATO has certainly been cleared up. I think
turning the corner. But
we're turning the corner. I think as far as Syria, Koki, you talk about Syria. Our policy is we are going to strike out against atrocities committed by Assad.
There are atrocities every day.
But
I mean, if you're going after Assad's atrocities,
but Koki, you know that chemical weapons crosses a red line that the international community has said for years is a red line that we will not allow. There are wars across the globe, but again, there are international norms.
There are 2 million Syrian children who are refugees right now. So, you know, what are we doing about them?
Exactly.
Nothing. I mean, there are all kinds of atrocities going on.
Right.
What we seem to be seeing is just these one-offs of saying we're tough, and I don't think that gets you anywhere.
I don't think I'm not so sure that I'm not so sure that they're one-offs though, and I guess that's the question, and that's what we see over time if the dots are connected.
If they're more than just one-offs, that would seem to be a kind of a violation of the central tenet of whatever Trumpism is in foreign policy, because he, remember, campaigned not to get us into more stupid wars. And so when you look at what he's doing with Iran and how, you know, he may be moderating somewhat on that, not quite sure, not going to add on day one, as he promised in the campaign, which was basically a Republican prerequisite to running for president, promising that you would rip up this terrible deal on day one.
Right.
Now that he realizes he can't do that, he's, as Peter has written about, kind of learning on the job very quickly and facing the steep learning curve that is the presidency. So reconciling those campaign promises, which are a central part of his brand, living up to those is pretty difficult when you are suddenly the president of the United States.
Well, Mika, what he's found is that what this administration has found is that the last administration pretty smart at putting things in place that are harder to unwind. Domestically, Barack Obama considered his biggest achievement the Affordable Care Act.
Right.
That's proven to be harder to unwind. His foreign policy, the Iran deal, is what he wanted to get done from the beginning. And again, they front-loaded the benefits so much for Iran that you do sit there and go, well, gee, how exactly do we unwind this deal now that they've gotten all the money?
And things are far more deeply complicated once you get into office and you see all the fine print.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.